How many of you have heard of 630? Great. Do you guys know what it is? Do you know why it's great? The great thing about 630, so 630 is a program where we give investments and mentorship to companies that are in financial technology. Okay, so what's special about financial technology? Well, it turns out financial technology is a little special because of a historical anomaly in St. Louis. We just happen to have a lot of good financial service companies, big financial service companies. Depending on how you rank it, we're probably the #2 city after New York. So we've got, and I'm going to blow this, we've got US Bank, we've got Scottrade, we've got Stifel, we've got MasterCard. Actually, MasterCard has more employees in the St. Louis region than they do throughout the rest of the US. You know, they're headquartered in Purchase, New York, but the people work here. So we have this natural advantage, and it turns out that entrepreneurs tend to want to go where their big companies are. And the nice thing about 630 is that if you're in the financial technology services area, you have an extra hurdle. Normally, if you've got a startup, you need 3 things. You need a great team, you need some money, and you need a really good idea. And if you've got those things, you're willing to work hard, the business will pretty much succeed if you have those 3 elements. But if you're a financial services company, those 3 elements are not enough because you need access to the rails of commerce. So in other words, when we started Square, great example, we had great idea, great team, we had money, but it took us 3 weeks to build a working product, and then it took us 18 months to get all the licenses, banking relationships, all of the mechanisms that allowed us to actually move money. So the great thing about 630, and one of the things that is innovative, and by the way, it's been done nowhere else right now, is that we're taking companies that have great ideas in financial services, we're bringing them to St. Louis, and then we're playing matchmaker with the Scottrades and the Stifels and all the other companies that have the big rails that these companies absolutely need in order to get their products out. Now, the reason this is such a great win for the city is that it's a game that you can't copy in Indianapolis. You can't even copy this, frankly, in San Francisco because the concentration of financial services companies is unique to our location. So it's a case of, betting when the odds are heavily in your favor. 630, great program, like to see it go. Arch Grants. How many heard of Arch Grants? Okay. Arch Grants is stellar because it is the first program of its type with a non-dilutive funding. Now let me tell you why this is so important. Because when you're starting a company, the first dollar is incredibly precious. As you start to get momentum, as you start to get a product out the door, funders come along, angels come along, investors come along, greed follows opportunity, right? That's a great equation. But the thing is, when you're starting out, these dollars are precious. A dollar invested in a hot startup will return 100 to 1,000 to 1, okay? So if you give a company, at the beginning, a non-dilutive grant, you are essentially preserving value in that company with orders of magnitude of impact. And that's what Arch Grants does, because we don't take a piece of the company. We say to the companies, come to St. Louis, locate here, build your businesses here, and we will give you this $50,000 grub stake. And it's already working. We've got some great examples. Particularly in life sciences. I was amazed in life science particularly, because in life science, the numbers are bigger. It just takes more money to get a biotech company going than it does to get a tech startup going. But Adarza, great company through Arch Grants, located here in St. Louis. One of my favorites, a company called Immunophotonics, experimenting with a new cancer treatment, would not have been in business but for Arch Grants, and is now here. They've raised pretty much an A round. I'll talk about some of that a little bit later if I have time. And they're doing great things. And this is all because of the vision of the people who started Arch Grants and the generosity of the city to fund this experiment, right? Because we didn't copy Arch Grants from anybody. We made it up, and it's working. Okay, Arch Grants, 630. I have to go to my list, because if I forget somebody, I'm going to be really embarrassed. Cultivation Capital. I would have forgotten that. And I'm a partner in Cultivation Capital, but I just like to say that Cultivation Capital is moving the needle because we are a early seed series fund. So we give money to young companies. the companies that come out of Arch Grants, the companies that come out of 630. Actually, we invest in 630. But it's starting to move the needle. We've got a great portfolio of companies that have St. Louis roots, and now they're getting funding. And that funding, again, is critical because, as Tom said, if you don't fund them at the right time, the VCs are lazy, and the VCs want the companies to locate within driving distance of their homes. It's natural. You would too if you had that much money. So by funding these companies locally and keeping them here while they're growing, they put down the roots in the city. Okay. Capital Innovators. So you guys know about Capital Innovators? How many know about Capital Innovators? Okay, a few less. Capital Innovators is fantastic because it's one of the top 10 accelerator programs in the country. Now, the reason that's important is because accelerators have become increasingly more important within the startup ecosystem. In the old days, 10 years ago, companies were taking these steps by themselves. These days, the vibe is more collaborative. So you've got groups like Techstars and Y Combinator and places that encourage companies to come together and form these little packs, and they all work together in a group. We have one of the top 10 programs in the country. It's called Capital Innovators, and it's drawing great startup companies to St. Louis. TRex. Everybody knows about TRex, right? Does everybody know about TRex? Okay. Have you guys been down to TRex? Who's been down to see the new space? The new space is awesome, okay? Now, I'm not necessarily convinced the new space is going to make TRex better because it was so awesome to begin with. The great idea with TRex is simply to get a bunch of companies together in an inexpensive space so they're not burning through a lot of cash and cram them in so that they naturally cross-pollinate ideas. And we've seen startup after startup after startup come through TRex successfully. With the Lambert building, which is beautiful and fantastic, we're still seeing that collaborative thing. And if you want just to go someplace, if you're bored and just want to work somewhere, go to the 7th floor of the Lambert building. It is an inspiring place to work. When I am sick of sitting there with my headphones on in my crummy little office in Clayton, I will drive down to TRex and sit with my headphones on the 7th floor. BioGenerator. How many of you guys know about BioGenerator? Do you guys know why BioGenerator is super important? BioGenerator is super important because what BioGenerator does is it provides two things. It provides funding and resources for life science companies in their very early stages. But more important, BioGenerator provides a validation of concepts that investors would not otherwise be able to stomach. So I'll give you a personal example. My wife and I ran into a company called Immunophotonics, which has this experimental cancer treatment at Arch Grants. So I got to see these guys. And I thought about it, I was like, oh my God, there's a possible treatment for cancer. Like, why would I not want to help these guys? So, oh, Hyla. I'm sorry, I can't give you guys a plug when you're sitting in the audience. Anyway, well, no, I can't say that. I feel weird. Seriously, I didn't know you were going to be here. Anyway, so Immunophotonics, great stuff. And my wife and I were going to make an investment in Immunophotonics. But basically, what we were doing was we were waiting for BioGenerator because neither my wife nor I know enough about T cells and B cells to make a rational decision to figure out if Lou was actually lying to me. Right. So what BioGenerator did was once they approved the company, I had the confidence to say, okay, well, some people who have PhDs and who actually understand life science much better than I ever will have vetted the basics of this company. They're not just making it all up, right? Because I feel very comfortable in the tech space calling somebody a liar, but when it gets down to molecular biology, I'm totally ignorant. And so BioGenerator is super important, and they again are moving the needle on a lot of these startups in a way that wouldn't otherwise happen. And then there's CORTEX. Have you guys seen CORTEX? Right? See, this is the hard part about talking to you. Everybody knows everything. CORTEX is a fantastic hub of innovation. And again, Tom kind of explained what's going on at CORTEX. And CORTEX is more than just this, these sort of office spaces for science and technology companies. What CORTEX is doing is CORTEX is trying to seed a campus of innovation. So they've got the space for the labs. They've got the space for the offices. They're bringing in TechShop. Okay, so you guys heard of TechShop? All right, so TechShop's pretty cool. TechShop is actually where I built some of the prototypes for the square readers, right? Because when I was living in San Francisco, I didn't have a milling machine, right? And I needed a milling machine to mill out the plastic, and guess what? There was this little place in Menlo Park. I could drive down the 101, and for 50 bucks, join TechShop, and I could use a Bridgeport mill and mill out the plastic that I needed to make the pieces that I needed. That was it. It was access to the tools. I mean, quite literally, just plain access to the tools. So they're bringing TechShop here. Cambridge Innovation Center. CORTEX is bringing CIC here. Now, CIC is epic. Like, if you get to go to Boston and see this one building where they have collected, I think it's something like 700 companies. It's an insane amount of companies. Company you've heard of, they've got Amazon in there, they've got a Google Research Lab in there, they've got dozens of startups, and they've got this history of success. And again, it's critical mass. Yes, it's awesome. So Dick has said it better than City Museum for Entrepreneurs. And they're coming here. And they're coming here to be part of this CORTEX area. And that's super important because the density of these activities is the way we get ideas to cross-pollinate. And sometimes the best ideas are when the financial guy runs into, the bioscience guy runs into somebody who's doing finance, and that happens where? Well, maybe in the green space that they're also building. So CORTEX is super important. Another thing I should mention, RiverVest. How many people have heard of RiverVest? Okay, is there anyone here from RiverVest? Okay, so I won't get into trouble for plugging these guys. RiverVest is simply one of the best performing VC funds in the country. So we talk about all this capital being on the coasts. I know some of these guys. Their funds are not going to return. Their funds, they've got these 10-year funds, they've got these billions of dollars, and they've invested in some really stupid companies. And I could name a few of them. But a lot of these guys are going to vaporize billions of dollars. But we in St. Louis have one of the statistically best funds anywhere. It's called RiverVest, and they're here. So it's a great boost for our city to have not just money, but smart money rooted locally.